First of all, Mr. Lawrence, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me and for doing this interview. Um,
Thank you.
I, yeah, of course. So the idea here is just to kind of get some background on where you are now and how you got there. So can you start off by telling me about yourself and your professional background?
Awesome. Sure thing. So I am a law student. I'm entering my third year of law school. So right now I'm working at my summer internship, which is at an immigration law firm. We specialize in asylum applications, employment visas, and other like family and immigration matters. So where I got here is I wanted to explore different career paths in the legal profession. And so that's why I chose to kind of take a different direction from my other classes and work at an immigration law firm.
Great. That's excellent. And sort of what motivated you to do that?
So in law school, during my second year is when I was able to take a variety of classes, going from counterterrorism to corporate law to banking law and SEC law. And so I really found my interest in agency law and how the different government agencies operate. And so part of that was the Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security. And so I learned a little about that. And I found that immigration law is a great opportunity to use that knowledge to not only help people and not only problem solve, but also stay up to date on different governmental changes, as well as see how politics really affect, political issues that or the lives of people who are affected of political issues, such as immigration.
Great. No, that makes a lot of sense. Speaking of staying updated, how do you stay up to date with like the latest trends and developments in the industry that you're in?
Yeah, of course. So our firm has a lot of different newsletters and groups and organizations that we subscribe to or are a part of. So it can range from simple email lists, such as the American Immigration Law Association, as well as making sure that when a new case comes to light, such as an attorney general's decision on a certain matter, or a landmark Fourth Circuit case, which is a circuit where Maryland and Virginia immigration law cases are a part of. We make sure to read those decisions and see how it affects future cases and how the precedent might change our clients' outcomes going forward.
Excellent. Okay, so you're kind of keeping up with the news, but as it relates to your sort of purview.
Right.
Okay. What would you consider your greatest strengths and weaknesses as a professional?
So I would say that my greatest strength as a professional is to not be afraid of trying new things. So before I entered law school, I was actually working at a tech startup um, in a very niche area. We were helping martial arts small businesses with their billing and advertising solutions. And that was prior to me entering law school. But I can also see myself using my current knowledge, going back into that same workplace and, finding solutions for that company because I like to keep a very open mind when it comes to the law and being able to put all of my experiences together so I can become a more well-rounded professional no matter what career or subcategory of the law that I practice. But I think that also may come with a downside, which might be my weakness in my career journey, which is sometimes I'm a little scatterbrained. Um, I'm sometimes not easily able to pick a direction and go into it. You can kind of see that based on my college transcripts. I'm kind of all over the place with my classes, which, on the bright side, it makes me a more well-rounded professional or student. But on the downside, it kind of makes me worried that I'm not picking one career trajectory and going for it. So I think there's two sides to the coin.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Can you describe a challenging situation you faced at work and how you overcame it?
So my challenging situation, I think that would have to do with deadlines. So of course, as a law student and as a legal professional, time management is very important. But there's always going to be situations where it just feels impossible to get everything done on time. And especially in the legal profession, when your supervisors and your higher ups, and not only them, but your clients are depending on you to get things done in a timely manner and to make sure that, court deadlines are made, it creates a challenge for you. I mean, obviously, there's no worse feeling than finding out the night before that, you have something due the next day. But it's our job to make sure that it gets done. So in those situations, we have to leverage, our our resources that we have, such as other attorneys or other interns, or work as a team in order to make sure that, the outcome can be met at the deadline. So that's what I was able to do in these situations.
Great. Okay. Yeah, time management, that's, I think, probably pretty crucial everywhere, but especially in your field, that makes a lot of sense. How do you handle conflicts or disagreements with colleagues or clients?
So in the legal profession, that's a very interesting aspect of our job. I mean, it's kind of inherent in the legal profession that people will have different opinions than you. But of course, we have to keep it civil. We have to make sure that, we listen to each other's opinions, but at the same time, we do what's best for the client. And sometimes, we can't have two right answers. So developing good relationships with your colleagues is, of course, key. Like, you cannot work as a team if there's tension at every step of the process. So I think mutual respect is a solution to handling these disagreements. Say a disagreement on, oh, how should we proceed with the case? Should we use a convention against torture argument, or should we stick with the asylum argument?
Mm.
Which are oftentimes more similar than not. So finding an even ground is of course important, and also just at the end of the day, knowing that what you do will have a real impact on your client. And I think we all have an agreement on that. So that's how we solve tension.
Right, sort of finding that commonality. Yeah, okay. What do you think sets you apart from other professionals in your field?
So in my field, in immigration law, I think I'll recall my previous answer too. Um, when it comes to keeping an open mind and enjoying learning about new things. Um, so a lot of immigration law is not only asylum and, humanitarian claims, but it also has to do with employment. And I'm interested in a lot of corporate law aspects as well. So a lot of our EB2 visa claims, so small businesses, um, a lot of that is grounded in, corporate law philosophy or business law. And so with my general knowledge of different subject areas, I think that could be especially useful when we're helping clients, start a business and hire foreign workers. And I think that brings a perspective that some other professionals who are strictly immigration law might not be so well versed in.
Excellent. Okay. How you mentioned sort of time management, especially in deadlines and that sort of thing. How do you yourself prioritize tasks and manage your time effectively?
That's a great question. Actually, part of my personal and professional development has been making sure I have an effective organization method. Um, and it's kind of evolved for me from setting random iPhone reminders to more of a well rounded calendar and tracking system. And that also correlates with how my firm processes and manages our tasks. Um, so, time management, I don't think can be a strictly individual process. I think it also depends on the efforts of others who you work with, because redundancy is obviously not good in any business. And we want to make sure that everybody's time is being used effectively. So, what I will do is make sure that I communicate what I'm working on and what has been done with my superiors and with my colleagues. And so that will make it more effective for us to collaborate on future projects as well as close cases and make sure everybody has a mindset or perspective on, where we are for a specific client
Great. Would you say you see yourself professionally in the next 5 years?
in the next 5 years. Hopefully I'll graduate. Hopefully I'll graduate. But realistically, I hope to be advancing my career at a firm in my market area that I choose. Um, I hope to have made significant connections and strengthen my knowledge in one career area of the law, whichever that might be. I hope to be in a spot where I can know that if I were to advance my career into, a higher level, that I'll have the tools and the mindset and the experience needed to do so.
Great. That sort of brings me to my next question. What do you think are the most important qualities for success in your field?
It's an excellent question. So that makes me think a lot about what law school teaches you in general. So it's kind of a running joke in the law school community that law school teaches you the law, but not specifically how to be a lawyer. Um, so I think first, self drive is a very significant part of being successful as a lawyer, and knowing how to figure things out for yourself. And that kind of parallels a lot of what you do in law school. Um, so learning how to research cases and learning how to come to your own conclusions, even when the information isn't readily available or stated to you. Um, a lot of it is just problem solving, and to be successful, I feel like the basic and the main principle is you just have to have the motivation to be able to learn how to do things, even if you're not explicitly taught it.
Great. Okay. What do you find most fulfilling about the work that you do now?
So I really enjoy helping people, and that kind of goes hand in hand in problem solving too. I I really like it when somebody asks for your help and you're able to do something. You're able to make their lives better, or you're able to just take care of something that previously they felt hopeless about. And that's especially true in immigration law, but that's, I feel, pretty much the essence of what any lawyer does with their clients.
Excellent. What are some common misconceptions about your job?
So misconceptions about lawyers, I would say that it's the idea that we're in court every day. A lot of movies and TV shows depict lawyers as just arguing in front of a judge 24/7, which isn't exactly true. A lot of what I do at my internship is I do a lot of research and writing briefs and spending the majority of my time learning about cases and understanding what clients need. So it's a very kind of diverse work portfolio that we have. It's not all the glamour of shouting objection in front of in front of a judge, even though that's an important part of what we do. Um, Building a case takes a lot of different skills, and a lot of it is done alone in your office at 8 p.m. reading over cases.
Great. Now, when we discussed time management, you sort of mentioned not living on an island, having sort of these relationships with other people. How do you approach networking and building professional relationships? What are some methods you use there?
So I like to attend events, not only those that I find interesting myself, but also those that I might be able to see myself wanting to learn more about in the future. Recently, I actually spoke with a couple of military law professionals known as the JAG Corps, so the Army law professionals. And even if it isn't, a career path that I knew specific, well, that I think specifically that I wanted to follow, it's just fascinating hearing basically what their answers would be to the questions that you've asked me before. Um, Again, like law is a very diverse field. A lot of people in the law, in the legal profession, have different interests than mine, but we all learn from one another. So I think diversity of experience is key in networking. And so if you're looking to network, you should seek out professionals who are doing things a little differently than you.
That's great advice. Excellent. How do you stay inspired and creative in your work?
So I always like to think about how I could improve the work that I've done previously. I think that's how I stay creative and inspired. Um, I always try to learn from my previous work, say if it's an appeal brief or an argument that I formulated. I get as much feedback as possible from my superiors, or even reading over prior cases and seeing what worked and what didn't. And I try to apply that to my future work.
Great. How do you ensure your skills and knowledge stay relevant in a rapidly changing industry?
I think that goes back to your previous question about making sure that I stay up to date
Mhm.
on growing trends. So the law is, I think, it might be, the quintessential growing industry because new court cases and new precedent are formed very often, especially at the federal level, the appeals court and the Supreme Court. And, as a lawyer, you have to innovate. You have to innovate your arguments and you have to adapt almost overnight when a new precedent is formed. So again, we just have to stay up to date, make sure that our arguments that we're making are still current, and knowing that even if clients have the same problems that they did 10 years ago, that the circumstances in which we're working with them have changed.
Excellent. What is one significant lesson that you have learned in your career?
No client's the same. I think that's one lesson. Even if their cases are very similar, even if we're making even if we're using the same cases to argue their case or to support their appeal or so forth, every client is different. Every client has their own personal experiences. Some of them may want things that does not seem rational or like the best objective to you. But at the end of the day, they hired you and you have to do what's in their best interest, even if you don't agree with what they want.
Makes a lot of sense, kind of coming back to your diversity in the field, but with clients instead. Yeah. Are there any specific areas of your field that you're interested in exploring further through specifically education or training?
So as far as education goes, I think law school is a great stopping point for my educational career. Um, and I don't think I could see myself going further in education, at least not yet. But if I do find an area of laws, if it is immigration law or if it's corporate law, or if it's a new form of law like artificial intelligence law that may arise and, rapidly become an integral part of our lives, I could absolutely see myself seeking further training or qualifications or work experience, in a new area. So again, I mean, the law is rapidly changing, the world is rapidly changing, and clients' needs are rapidly changing. So sometimes you also have to rapidly change.
Right, sort of stay adaptable. Definitely. So you mentioned you're not arguing in front of a judge 24/7. Can you walk me through a typical day in your role?
Right. Of course. So basically, a typical day in my role is first, I look to my superiors and my colleagues to see what needs to be done or what I can help with. And knowing my own strengths and weaknesses, if I'm lucky enough, I'm able to choose a project that I feel like I'd be able to excel in. And then a lot of the rest of my day is, preparing and organizing myself to be able to complete that project by the deadline. Should that be research or making calls with clients or even speaking with clients, even if they speak a different language than me, I can arrange for a translator, and I can learn as much about them as I need to be successful in that project. And then afterwards, I just make sure that my work is something that I'm proud of, and I proofread it. I get as much opinions on it as possible. I get as much feedback on it as possible. And once I'm done, I present it to my supervising attorney, and that's it.
Great. That brings me to my next question. Can you describe your interactions with clients or stakeholders in your role?
Yeah, of course. So, like I said earlier, I try to learn as much about clients as I possibly can. Of course, working at an immigration law firm, many of our clients do not speak that much English. So in that case, we have some wonderful translators here who do a really amazing job of translating like on the spot. It's really impressive to me, and I can still build that personal connection with clients that I need, even if we're talking through a medium such as a translator.
Excellent. How do you handle stress or pressure in your day-to-day work?
So I think law school has prepared me to handle stress and pressure, just by the nature of it. So of course, law school, almost every class is based on one final exam, and that brings me to the point of preparedness. Um, the best way for me to handle stress is to just ensure that no matter what happens, I have a plan. I'm prepared to tackle it as it comes to me, even if something comes up that's unexpected. And just knowing that for me is a big part of, remaining focused and remaining less stressed out at my job.
Excellent. That brings me to my next question. How do you balance your work responsibilities with your personal life?
It's a great question. And I think for this answer, this is something I learned a lot actually working here is, of course, our job as attorneys, or in my case, as an intern, is very important and there's a lot of stakes. But at the same time, you have to prioritize your own time, and you have to set, hard limits on how much work you do before it's just too much, because at the end of the day, if you overwork yourself, it's going to bite you in the long term. You're not going to be able to keep it up forever if you don't manage your time or your stress well enough. And ultimately, that's not going to be good for your clients. So, knowing what your limit is and stopping is crucial to prioritizing your time and separating your personal life with your professional responsibilities.
Okay, so kind of having those boundaries. Can you share an experience where you had to quickly learn a new skill or technology for a project?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, these situations actually come up more often than not. Um, it kind of ties back to the rapidly changing aspect of the law, and especially immigration law. So there actually is a case. Um, it's not a case, it's more of a directive from Attorney General Jeff Sessions in 2019. It's called In the Matter of LEA, and it basically overturned or like flipped immigration law on its head when it came to asylum claims. I'm not going to go into the specifics of it, but a common argument for asylum claims is that being part of a family constitutes a social group for asylum claims. And that's a key aspect of many cases in immigration law. And so when that change happened, that family groups are no longer, a viable social group, many of our arguments had to be changed overnight. I wasn't working then, but future updates on this matter when it comes to this specific social group can happen basically overnight. And so, like I was saying before, you just have to adapt, even if you're in the middle of a project. If the precedent has been set, you have to completely redo it, um, or you have to adapt or change your argument to still be viable in the new landscape. And so, Yeah, I've had situations like that.
Wow, that's really impressive. So you mentioned working with clients who speak different languages than you, but how do you approach working with colleagues or clients with different communication styles?
It's a great question. I think a lot of people have their own communication style, but at the same time, a lot of people, when they're in an environment, like a professional environment, they kind of adapt to what they think is the accepted communication style. Um, and that's kind of the psychological aspect of it. But I think we all do that, at least in some part. And if you go into a new environment and you're not sure of what their communication style is for the whole team, um, I think a lot of times what you want to do is adapt. And that's what I've done at this law firm. We like to be direct with our coworkers. We like to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And so when I talk to my superiors or my colleagues, I just make sure that I know what they want to know about a case, and I make sure to give them the information that they need.
Great. Got about two more questions for you. What do you think are the biggest challenges facing professionals in your industry today?
I think one of the biggest challenges today would be, I think that would be the job market, which is always a concern for any professional, especially nowadays. But, I think it's finding that balance between what job is available, what kind of experience you want to get, and what your own interests are. And of course, in my situation, I have a lot of different interests. Um, Once I do focus on a specific career trajectory, um, I think I'll be able to narrow down and lock in what specific kind of job that I want. But for many other people who are dead set on, say, you know, public policy work, or they want to do international law or humanitarian law, I think a big challenge is again like reconciling what kind of job is available with what kind of interest they have.
Definitely. Who would you say is a role model in your life, and why do you look up to this person?
You know, for the legal profession, I'm not sure exactly if I can pick one specific role model. And again, that might be because I have a lot of different interests. But I have a lot of respect for attorneys who are able to switch careers or really just use their legal knowledge or their background in law, as a way to become a more well-rounded professional in general. A lot of attorneys further in their career go into politics or they go into business or they become advisors for companies. And that's something I really respect because it means that you can be more versatile in your professional life and you don't just have to stick to one thing. I think they're very well-rounded professionals and that's something I'd like to emulate myself.
Excellent. And final question. If you could give your younger self one piece of professional advice, what would it be?
I think that would be just don't be afraid to try new things. Um, Learn even more, whatever opportunity you have.
That's great advice.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Lawrence, so much for taking the time today. We really appreciate you giving your time and your insight to this interview, and have a wonderful day.
Of course. Thank you so much. You too.